My daughter-in-law called at 4:00 a.m. Your son is dead. I already had him cremated. He left everything to me. You get nothing. I said nothing, but something was wrong. My son hated fire. He'd told me 100 times if anything ever happened to him, he wanted to be buried next to his mother. Not burned, never burned. So I didn't fly to Hawaii for a funeral. I flew there to investigate. What I discovered in the next 7 days destroyed her perfect plan. Hello, everyone, and thank you for being here. Before we begin, I'd love to know, where are you watching this from? Leave a comment with your city or country. It helps me understand who's listening to these grandpa stories. One more thing, while some details have been dramatized for entertainment and educational value, the core lesson about family faith and following your gut is absolutely true. The call came at 4:32 a.m. Pacific time, and I knew before I answered that my life was about to change forever. I'd been a cop for 35 years in Seattle. You develop instincts. The middle of the night phone call is never good news. I fumbled for my reading glasses, squinting at the screen. Lydia, my daughter-in-law, calling from Hawaii. My heart already knew. Curtis. Her voice came through shaky, but something about it felt rehearsed. I have terrible news. It's Brandon. He drowned yesterday during our sunset cruise in Maui. The words hit like a physical blow. My son, my only child. What happened when... Yesterday evening, we were on a boat, and he slipped overboard. The current was so strong. The Coast Guard searched, but... She paused. I'm so sorry. The funeral is already arranged. Cremation. Just like he always wanted. That's when the first alarm bell went off. Brandon never wanted to be cremated. We'd talked about it after his mother passed. He wanted to be buried next to her someday under the big oak at Evergreen Cemetery. Lydia, I don't think... Oh, and Curtis. She cut me off, her voice shifting to something colder. About Brandon's estate and the life insurance policy, it all comes to me. $3 million plus the house, everything. You should know that before you fly out here. The lawyers were very clear. You get nothing. Then she hung up. I sat there in the dark, staring at my phone. The clock glowed 4:34 a.m. 2 minutes to shatter my world. Or at least that's what she wanted me to believe. Something was very, very wrong. Brandon was a championship swimmer in high school. Made state finals his junior year. Even at 40, he swam laps 3 times a week. The idea of him drowning on a tourist cruise was absurd. And that comment about the money. Who says that to a grieving father? Not, I'm sorry for your loss. Not, he went peacefully. But you get nothing, essentially a threat. I opened my messages. There it was, Brandon's last text sent yesterday at 4:17 p.m. I hadn't seen it because I'd been at a friend's retirement dinner, phone on silent. Dad, I need to talk. It's about Lydia. Something's not right. Can we meet this weekend? My hands started shaking. I thought back 3 years to when Brandon introduced us to Lydia at Sunday brunch. She was beautiful, charming, said all the right things, but I'd felt something off. Maybe the way her smile never quite reached her eyes, or how she kept steering conversation back to Brandon's job, his salary, his prospects at Microsoft. My wife Louise would have picked up on it immediately. She had incredible instincts about people. But Louise had been gone 10 years by then, and I'd learned to let Brandon make his own choices, even when those choices included marrying a woman who made my cop instincts buzz. I should have said something, should have pulled him aside, shared my concerns, but I'd kept quiet, told myself I was being overprotective. Now my son was supposedly dead, and his wife's first priority was making sure I knew I wasn't getting any money. I stood at my bedroom window. Outside, Queen Anne was still dark. Somewhere out there, the truth was waiting. I didn't book a flight to Hawaii. Not yet. Instead, I did what I had done for 3.5 decades. I started asking questions. The first question was simple. If Brandon drowned yesterday evening, why was Lydia so eager to tell me about the money before telling me how he died? I sat there in the dark, my cop instincts screaming. This wasn't grief in her voice. This was a performance, and I was going to find out why. Sleep was impossible after Lydia's call. I sat at my kitchen table with black coffee as the sky lightened. At exactly 6 a.m., I called Roland Hughes. Roland and I went back 20 years on the Seattle force. He'd made detective the same year I did. Curtis, it's 6 in the morning. You'd better be calling because you won the lottery. I need a favor, Roland, a big one. His tone shifted. What's wrong? My son, Brandon. His wife says he drowned in Maui yesterday, but something's not right. I told him everything, the call, Lydia's coldness, about the money, the cremation, Brandon. Never wanted the text message I'd missed. "Read me that text again," Roland said. I pulled up my phone. It says, "Dad, I need to talk. It's about Lydia. Something's not right. Can we meet this weekend?" "Curtis, I'm sorry. But you're thinking what I'm thinking, aren't you?" "Yeah, I need you to run her. Everything. Full name. Lydia Taylor, maiden name Lawson. I'll call you back in an hour." It took 45 minutes. "Curtis, sit down, if you're not already." I stopped pacing. "What did you find?" "Your daughter-in-law has been busy. 6 months ago, she took out a $3 million life insurance policy on Brandon. Guess who the beneficiary is?" "Lydia." "That's a massive policy for a healthy 40-year-old. My stomach tightened. "What else?" "This is where it gets strange. Lydia was married before. A man named Michael Bradford. He died 2 years ago." The room tilted. "How?" "Drowning accident. Bahamas vacation. Snorkeling. Body never recovered. Ruled accidental. Insurance. $1.5 million. I sat down hard. "2 husbands," Roland said quietly. "2 drownings. 2 payouts. That's a pattern." "She killed them," I said. "Michael Bradford and now Brandon, if she hasn't already. We don't know that yet. But if your son is dead, this goes to the authorities. If he's not, then I need to find him fast." "What do you need?" "Everything on Michael Bradford. Full case file. And everything on Lydia Work Money, Associates. I'll have it by noon. Curtis, be careful. If she's done this before and thinks you're on to her." "I know." After I hung up, I stared at Brandon's text. It's about Lydia. Something's not right. He'd known. He'd sensed the danger, and I hadn't listened. Guilt hit me hard. 3 years ago, when I first met Lydia, I'd felt that cold warning in my spine. I ignored it, told myself I was being paranoid. Now Brandon might be dead because I stayed silent. Roland called again at 11:30. "I've got the Bradford file. And there's more. Lydia's been making regular trips to Maui for 6 months. Always alone." "Planning," I said. "That's how it looks. I'm sending everything now, but you should involve the authorities." "I will, after I know what happened to my son." I opened my laptop. Roland's email was already there. I clicked the Michael Bradford file first. The pattern was undeniable. Same method, same motive, same cold calculation. That afternoon at the precinct, Roland handed me a folder. No doubt, anymore. Lydia's first husband, Michael Bradford, died the same way. Drowning. Bahamas. Exactly. By noon, I was on a plane to Maui. The 5-hour flight gave me time to think, and the more I thought, the more convinced I became that my son was still alive. The pattern was too perfect. Michael Bradford in the Bahamas. Brandon now in Maui. 2 drownings, 2 convenient accidents, no bodies. Lydia had done this before and walked away clean. But this time she had me. I landed in Maui just after 7 p.m. The airport buzzed with tourists in bright shirts, laughing and snapping photos. I pushed past them, rented a car, and drove straight to the resort, where Brandon and Lydia had stayed. The Ocean Breeze Resort was postcard-perfect palm trees, an infinity pool, endless ocean views. Paradise. Except my son had supposedly drowned here 2 days earlier. I found the manager in the lobby. His nameplate read, Clayton Hart. "I'm Curtis Lawson," I said. "Brandon Lawson's father." His face shifted into practiced sympathy. "I'm so sorry for your loss, sir. Your daughter-in-law has been absolutely devastated. I want to see her. She's in room 412. I can call up." "Don't," I said. "I'll surprise her." Something flickered in his eyes, but he nodded. In the elevator, my heart hammered. I hadn't seen Lydia since the wedding. That day she'd worn white and smiled like an angel. Now I knew better. I knocked on room 412. Lydia opened the door, wearing black yoga pants and a tank top. Her hair was pulled back, mascara smeared beneath her eyes. "Curtis," she said, startled. "I didn't expect you so soon. The cremation is already done. There's really no reason. I want to know what happened. Everything." She stepped aside. The room was chaotic, suitcase open, clothes everywhere. She was packing. "It was the sunset cruise," she said softly. Brandon was taking pictures near the rail. A wave hit the boat, and he slipped. He went overboard. She gestured toward the dark ocean. The current was strong. By the time they turned back, he was gone. I watched her hands shake, the tears gather. Convincing. Too convincing. "Where's his body?" "The Coast Guard searched for 2 days. They said with these currents..." She shook her head. "So no body. No death certificate." Something flashed in her eyes. "Not yet. But they said one can be issued later." A lie, and she knew it. "I'm going to the police," I said. "They already know everything." I left. At the Maui Police Department, I was directed to Officer Timothy Holland, the Coast Guard liaison. He shook my hand. I'm sorry about your son. I was on the search. Is there a death certificate? No, sir. Without remains, it's a missing person. Under Hawaii law, it takes 7 years to declare death. 7 years. That meant Lydia couldn't touch the insurance. Not unless she produced a body. Outside, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Stop looking. He's gone. A friend. Someone was watching me, which meant I was right. I looked up at the dark Hawaiian sky. Brandon was out there somewhere, and whoever sent that message knew where. I wasn't stopping. I was just getting started. Every instinct I had as a detective told me this wasn't over. Too many lies, rehearsed answers, and fear behind her eyes. Whatever Lydia planned depended on silence, distance, and time. I would give her none. The next morning, after the threatening text, I knew I needed help. I'd been threatened before an occupational hazard, after 35 years in law enforcement. But threatening me over my son was a mistake. I needed someone who knew Maui, someone who could dig where I couldn't, someone who understood how the islands worked. Everett Shaw's office sat above a surf shop on Front Street in Lahaina. The sign read, Shaw Investigations Discreet. Professional. Results. Everett looked exactly like a former FBI agent turned private investigator. Mid-40s, sharp eyes, alert posture. He studied me the second I walked in. Curtis Lawson, he said. Retired Seattle PD. What brings you to my island? My son Brandon. His wife claims he drowned 4 days ago. I believe she's lying. I told him everything Brandon's warning text Lydia's past, with Michael Bradford, the Bahamas drowning the insurance policy, and the threat sent to my phone. Everett leaned back, fingers steepled. That's a clean pattern. What do you want from me? Everything. Lydia's associates' finances, movements. If Brandon's alive, someone here knows where he is. Give me 24 hours. I don't have... You do, he said calmly. If I rush, I miss things. You know that. He called the next morning. Come now. I reached his office in 15 minutes. His laptop showed multiple windows. Lydia's been involved with a man named Gavin Mercer, water sports instructor at your resort. A photo appeared late 30s, fit sun-darkened skin. They've been discreet, Everett continued, but not enough. He played security footage from the resort parking lot. Lydia and Gavin stood beside a white pickup, kissing intimately. The timestamp showed 2 days before Brandon supposedly drowned. There's more, Everett said. Gavin owns a boat, uses it for snorkeling and fishing charters, but he also makes trips to the outer islands. He pulled up booking records. On Sunday, the day Brandon vanished, Gavin canceled all bookings, claimed he was sick, but his boat left harbor at 6 a.m. and returned after dark. My pulse spiked. Where did he go? Everett opened a satellite map. He usually stays near tourist waters. But 6 months ago, he began going here. He zoomed in. A private island 15 miles offshore, owned by a shell company. Another image appeared. Docked at a small pier was a familiar vessel. Same make, same model. This image is from yesterday morning, Everett said. That boat's been there 4 days, since Brandon disappeared. My chest tightened. He's there. Everett nodded. I believe so. But we can't rush in. If they see us coming, they'll kill him. Exactly. We need eyes first. I stared at the island. Somewhere on that speck of land, my son was alive. When do we move? I asked. Tonight, Everett said. My boat, after midnight. Recon only. By dawn, we'll know. And then we call everyone. But first certainty. I stood. Tonight. Everett enlarged the image once more. Curtis, he said quietly, I think your son is still alive. I trusted my instincts completely now. Every step fit the pattern I'd chased my entire career. Lydia needed time, distance, and secrecy. I would take all three away from her. The island, the boat, the lies. None of it was coincidence. Whatever waited offshore, I would face it. I wasn't leaving Maui without my son, no matter what it cost or how dangerous the truth became. That night around midnight, Everett and I stood on a dock in Lahaina, staring at a rented boat bobbing in the dark water. At 70 years old, I thought my days of stakeouts and dangerous operations were over. I was wrong. We loaded the boat with binoculars, a camera with a telephoto lens, and flashlights we hoped not to use. Everett checked his phone one last time, satellite coordinates glowing on the screen. 15 miles due east, he said quietly. About 45 minutes if we keep the engine low. Once we're close, we cut power and paddle in. You've done this before, I said. More times than I can count. You ready? I thought of Brandon tied up somewhere on that island, scared, maybe hurt. Let's go. The ocean was calm beneath a quarter moon. just enough light to see without being seen. We moved slowly, the shoreline lights fading behind us. I checked my watch again and again. 12, 15, 12:30, 12:45. At 12:50, Everett cut the engine. There, he whispered. A dark shape rose from the water. As we drifted closer, details appeared. A small dock, a single wooden cabin set back from shore, one window glowing. We paddled the last 100 yards, oars dipping silently. My heart pounded so hard I was sure it could be heard. We tied off at the far end of the dock, away from Gavin's boat. Everett scanned the cabin through binoculars. One window facing us. Lights on. No obvious cameras. Move slow. Stay low. We crept along the dock and crossed the rocky beach to the cabin's side. Voices drifted out. A man on the phone. Gavin. Everett signaled toward the window. I crouched and raised my head just enough to see inside. Brandon lay on a narrow bed against the wall. Thin, pale, unshaven. His hands were tied to the frame with rope. He wasn't moving, but his chest rose and fell. Alive. My eyes burned. I forced myself to stay still. Gavin paced near the door phone, pressed to his ear. "Another week," he said. "That's enough time. Keep him sedated. When it's done, we make it look like he drowned trying to escape. Dump the body offshore and let the current do the rest." Same story as before. My fists clenched. I wanted to rush the door. Everett's hand crushed my shoulder. He shook his head. "Wait." Gavin ended the call. Then the door opened. Lydia stepped outside. She wore jeans and a dark sweater, relaxed, smiling. Nothing like the grieving widow. She kissed Gavin. "One more week," she said. "Then we're free. $3 million free." "You sure the old man bought it?" Gavin asked. "He bought it," she laughed. "He's probably back in Seattle. There's nothing he can do." I almost stood up. Everett held me down. Lydia glanced toward the water. For a second, her gaze swept past us. I froze. "Did you hear something?" she asked. "Just waves," Gavin said. They went inside. The door shut. Everett pulled me back. We retreated to the dock, untied, and started the engine once we were clear. Neither of us spoke until the island faded behind us. "I saw him," I said. "He's alive." "Yes," Everett said grimly. "But if we rush this, they'll kill him. So what do? We bring in the police, Coast Guard, everyone. We show them what we saw and let them take him safely." As Maui's lights reappeared, my hands shook with rage. I'd seen my son alive. I would not rest until Lydia and Gavin faced justice and son walked free. Alive. Later that morning, around 9, Everett and I walked into the Maui Police Department. I'd spent 35 years working with cops. Now I needed them to trust me one more time to save my son's life. We barely slept after the recon. We couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Brandon tied to that bed, pale and thin, heard Gavin calmly planning his murder. We had maybe a week before they killed him, maybe less. Captain Ernest Boyd met us in his office. Mid-50s gray hair, cut military short, the kind of man who'd seen everything and believed nothing without proof. "Mr. Lawson," he said, shaking my hand, "I understand you have information regarding your son." "Captain, my son is alive. He's being held on a private island 15 miles offshore. His wife and her accomplice plan to kill him within the week." Boyd's expression stayed neutral. "That's a serious claim, kidnapping, conspiracy insurance fraud. If you're wrong." "I'm not. I saw him last night. Everett and I went to that island." "You conducted your own reconnaissance," Boyd frowned. "Necessary," I said, "and we brought proof." Everett opened his laptop. 5 minutes, Captain." We showed him everything. Photos taken through the cabin window, Brandon tied to the bed, unmistakably alive. An audio recording of Gavin's phone call. "One more week. Make it look like he drowned trying to escape." Then the history. Michael Bradford, Lydia's first husband, drowned in the Bahamas. Ruled accidental. Insurance payout, $1.5 million. Next, Brandon's policy. $3 million taken out 6 months ago. Beneficiary Lydia. Finally, the resort security footage, Lydia and Gavin kissing 2 days before Brandon supposedly drowned. Boyd reviewed it all, making 2 quiet phone calls, cross-checking on his computer. At last he stood. "This is substantial," he said. "The pattern alone is damning." He straightened. "We move, but it's by the book. Water police, SWAT, Coast Guard. We do this right." "How long?" I asked. 2 hours. Briefings, coordination, hostage rescue planning. 2 hours felt unbearable, but I understood. You don't rush an operation like this. "I want to be there," I said. "You're a civilian now," Boyd replied. "Command boat only. No exceptions." I hated it, but he was right. At 10:45, we boarded 3 vessels, 2 Maui PD water police boats and a Coast Guard cutter. 12 officers total, plus Everett and me. SWAT and tactical gear weapons, ready. Boyd gave the final briefing. Hostage situation on a private island. 2 suspects armed and dangerous. 1 hostage condition unknown. Primary objective, hostage safety. Yes, sir, the teams answered. Engines roared to life. I stood on the command boat deck, watching Maui shrink behind us. Somewhere ahead, Brandon was waiting. We were coming. The crossing took 30 minutes. I scanned the horizon with binoculars. Then I saw it. Black smoke thick and rising against the blue sky. Captain, I shouted. Boyd grabbed his radio. All units, heavy smoke at target location. This is now a rescue operation. Full speed. The boat surged forward. My heart pounded. The cabin was burning. Brandon was inside. We were out of time. Before I tell you what happened next, I need to know. Do you think I got there in time? Will my son survive? Drop your prediction in the comments right now. One more thing, the story ahead includes some dramatized elements for impact. If that's not for you, feel free to stop here. But if you want the truth about what a father will do to save his son, keep watching. Minutes later, as we closed in on the island, flames burst through the cabin roof. Fire licked into the night sky, thick smoke rolling upward. Officers shouted commands over the engines, but all I could think was that my son was inside that inferno. The boat slammed into the shore. Police poured out weapons, raised voices sharp and controlled. Maui PD, hands up, nobody move. Lydia and Gavin were already running toward the dock, aiming for Gavin's boat. They froze when they saw 3 police vessels and armed officers surrounding them. There was nowhere left to run. I didn't wait. Every instinct drilled into me over 35 years screamed to hold position to let SWAT handle it, to follow protocol. I ignored every one of them. I ran straight for the burning cabin. Curtis No Everett shouted behind me, but I didn't slow down. The heat hit me 10 feet from the door, a wall of scorching air that burned my eyes. Smoke poured out thick and black. I yanked my shirt over my mouth and lunged inside. It was hell. I couldn't see. I could barely breathe. Smoke clawed at my lungs, fire crackled along the walls, devouring the old wood. The ceiling groaned, ready to collapse. Brandon, I shouted, but my voice vanished into the roar. I dropped low, crawling where the air was thinner. My hands hit the bed frame. Then rope, then skin. Brandon. He lay unconscious, tied to the bed face, pale in the firelight. I clawed at the ropes, but my hands shook too badly. Smoke, heat, panic. I couldn't make them work. Then Everett appeared through the haze knife, flashing. 3 fast cuts, and the ropes fell away. Go, he yelled. I've got his legs. I grabbed Brandon under the arms. He was limp, heavy, lifeless weight. Together we staggered toward the door, smoke so thick I couldn't tell where it was. Then fresh air hit my face. We burst out and collapsed on the sand. Paramedics rushed in. I rolled aside as they worked. No pulse, someone shouted. No. They started CPR, compressions, breaths, again and again. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. We were so close. Then Brandon coughed. A violent cough ripped through him. His eyes flew open, terrified. Dad, he whispered. I was beside him instantly. I'm here. You're safe. His hand found mine and squeezed weakly. I broke down. Behind us, Lydia screamed. Officers dragged her toward a boat, cuffs biting into her wrists. She fought, yelling incoherently. Gavin tried to flee, diving into the water. The Coast Guard intercepted him and hauled him out like a netted fish. Both caught, finished. Paramedics loaded Brandon onto a stretcher. Smoke inhalation, possible internal injuries. We're calling a helicopter. I'm going with him, I said. They nodded. While we waited, I walked to where Lydia sat guarded. She saw me and exploded. He wanted this? She screamed. He wanted to disappear. I stopped in front of her. Captain Boyd stood nearby. I looked at the woman who'd married my son, tied him up, and left him to burn. My son is alive, I said quietly, and you're finished. Her face drained of color. She had nothing left to say. The helicopter arrived, rotors churning smoke into spirals. They loaded Brandon in. I climbed after him, never releasing his hand. As we lifted off, I looked down. The cabin collapsed, inward smoke rising into the perfect blue sky. Police surrounded Lydia and Gavin on the beach. It was over. Brandon squeezed my hand again. Dad, he whispered, you found me? Always, I said. I'll always find you. 3 days later, on a quiet Sunday morning, Brandon was finally strong enough to talk. I sat beside his hospital bed at Maui Memorial, holding his hand, while Captain Boyd pulled up a chair with his recording device. My son had lost 15 pounds in 7 days, his cheekbones sharp, his skin pale against the white sheets. But his eyes were clear, alert, ready to tell the truth. Boyd pressed record. Mr. Lawson, in your own words, please describe what happened. Brandon's voice was hoarse but steady. 2 months ago, I found text messages on Lydia's phone. She was having an affair with Gavin Mercer, a water sports instructor at the resort where we'd been staying. When I confronted her, she denied everything, told me I was paranoid. He paused, swallowing hard. I was going to file for divorce. I'd already contacted a lawyer in Seattle. And the life insurance policy? Boyd asked. That was her idea. 6 months ago. Brandon's jaw tightened. She said we needed it for our future. $3 million. She insisted I name her as the sole beneficiary. I thought she was thinking about us, about security. I felt my chest tighten. The pieces were always there. We just didn't see them until it was too late. Walk me through last Sunday, Boyd said gently. Brandon closed his eyes, remembering. Gavin invited me out fishing, said we should bond man to man. Lydia encouraged it. She even packed us lunch. His voice cracked. On the boat, Gavin handed me a beer. I remember the taste was off. Bitter. And then, nothing. You were drugged? Yeah. When I woke up, I was on that island, tied to a bed. They were both there, Lydia and Gavin. They weren't hiding anymore. Brandon's hands trembled. Lydia looked at me like I was already dead. She told me they'd been planning this for months. They were going to keep me sedated for a week, then stage my drowning, make it look like an accident. Boyd leaned forward. What happened during that week? They kept me there, gave me sedatives twice a day to keep me weak. Lydia would come in and talk to me, tell me how much money she'd get, how she and Gavin were going to disappear to Costa Rica with the payout. His voice hardened. She said no one would ever find me, that the ocean would take care of the evidence. And the morning of the rescue, I heard helicopters, sirens. Gavin panicked. He started shouting that they had to get rid of me, but there wasn't time. Brandon's eyes met mine. That's when he set the fire. He was going to let me burn. Boyd made a note. Mr. Lawson, based on your testimony and the evidence we've collected, Lydia Lawson has been charged with first-degree kidnapping, attempted murder, conspiracy to commit insurance fraud, and first-degree arson. Gavin Mercer faces identical charges, plus aggravated assault for administering the sedatives without consent. Brandon exhaled slowly, then he looked at me. You saved my life, Dad. I squeezed his hand. You texted me about Lydia. I knew something was wrong. I trusted my gut. You always told me to do that, Brandon said softly. Trust your instincts. Boyd stood, switching off the recorder. We'll need you back in Seattle for the trial, but for now, rest. You've been through hell. After Boyd left, Brandon looked out the window at the Maui coastline, the place that had almost killed him. I want to go home, Dad. Back to Seattle. I need to start over, and I need to be close to family. I knotted my throat tight. Then let's go home. 3 months later, on a warm June evening, Brandon and I sat on the back porch of my house in Queen Anne, watching the sun sink into Puget Sound. He'd moved into my guest room temporarily after Maui, but neither of us was rushing that arrangement. The truth was simple. We both needed the quiet, the routine, and each other. We'd settled into an easy rhythm. Most nights we cooked dinner together. Nothing fancy, just grilled salmon and vegetables, the kind of simple meals Louise used to make. On Saturdays, we walked to Pike Place Market, bought fresh coffee, and watched the fishmongers toss salmon across the ice. Seattle felt like home again for both of us. Brandon went to therapy twice a week, working through what he called the island. He didn't say much about it, and I didn't push. But I noticed the changes. His hands no longer shook when he held a mug. His smiles came more easily. He slept through the night without jolting awake, drenched in sweat. He'd found a new job too, software engineering for a Portland company fully remote. He worked from my kitchen table or the porch laptop, open the sound stretching out in front of him. He was rebuilding piece by piece, slowly but truly. Late at night, I sometimes thought about Louise. 10 years gone, yet her voice still felt close. I remembered the hospital room, the soft beeping machines, her hand warm in mine. She'd looked at me and said, Curtis promised me something. Take care of our son, no matter what. Even when he thinks he doesn't need you. Always I'd said, I promise. And trust your instincts, she whispered. You always know what's right. I'd kept that promise, even when it seemed reckless flying to Maui on a hunch, hiring a PI pushing police to raid an island based on a father's gut. I trusted my instincts and I brought my son home alive. The trial lasted 2 months. Brandon testified, reliving everything in front of strangers. But the evidence was overwhelming. Recordings, photos, insurance documents, and the file on Michael Bradford. Lydia's plan unfolded in brutal clarity. She was sentenced to 25 years for attempted murder, kidnapping, conspiracy, and arson. The judge called her a danger to society and denied parole. Gavin received 15 years. He cooperated, testified against her, and the prosecutor labeled him a follower. Still, he'd helped drug my son, imprison him, and try to burn him alive. 15 years felt merciful. Both were in federal prison now. I didn't think about them. They weren't worth the space. Instead, Brandon and I started something new, the Louise Lawson Fund. Using part of my pension, we helped victims of financial exploitation and domestic abuse. People betrayed by those they trusted. It gave us purpose. It gave Louise's name a future. That evening, Brandon set down his beer and watched the water turn gold and pink. I used to think family meant paperwork and vows, he said. Lydia taught me what it isn't. So what is it, I asked? He smiled softly. It's showing up, not giving up. Trusting your gut when it sounds crazy. He looked at me. You're what family means. My throat tightened. Your mom would be proud. I know, he said. She's watching. We sat in silence as the skyline glowed. For the first time in years, I felt peace. Looking back now, I realize God put certain instincts in our hearts for a reason. When that phone call came at 4:32 in the morning, something inside me whispered, this isn't right. I could have ignored it. I could have boarded that plane to Maui and walked straight into Lydia's trap. But God gave me 35 years as a detective, not just to solve crimes, but to recognize evil when it's disguised as grief. My advice, don't be like I almost was. Don't ignore that voice in your gut when someone you love is in danger. Don't let politeness or doubt silence your instincts. God doesn't give us those warnings by accident. He's watching over the people we love, and sometimes he speaks through that uneasy feeling you can't explain. The lesson I learned, the one I share in all my grandpa's stories now, is this family isn't about blood or marriage certificates. It's about who shows up when it matters. It's about trusting God's guidance even when the path seems crazy. Brandon is alive today because I chose to listen to God, to my instincts, to that father's heart that wouldn't let me believe my son was gone. If this story touched you, please leave a comment below sharing your thoughts. Hit that subscribe button and share this video with someone who needs to hear these grandpa stories about real courage and real faith. That's what grandpa stories are all about, passing down wisdom that might save a life. Thank you so much for sticking with me until the end. And a quick disclaimer, the next story contains some fictional elements created for educational purposes. If that's not for you, feel free to explore other content that suits you better. God bless you all.